Good afternoon. This is the Socorro Planning and Zoning Commission. It is January 18th, 5:03 p.m. We call this, is this a special meeting, correct? Mr. Ray? Is it just regular? We call this meeting to order.
Good afternoon, everyone. Item number 2, establishment of quorum. Mr. Andrew Arroyos?
Here.
Mr. Enrique Cisneros? Absent. Mr. Ernest Gomez? He's absent. Mr. David Estrada?
Here.
Mr. Arturo Lafuente?
Here.
Ms. Julie Dominguez?
Here.
And Ms. Miriam Cruz.
Present.
We have quorum with 5 commissioners present. Moving on to item number 3, notice to the public open forum. Ms. Diana, do we have anyone that would like to speak?
We do not have any speakers.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve. I second.
Thank you so much. I have a motion made by Mr. Estrada to approve and seconded by Mr. Arroyos. Mr. Andrew Arroyos?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Enrique Cisneros is absent. Mr. Ernest Gomez is absent. Mr. David Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Arturo Lafuente?
Yes.
Ms. Julie Dominguez?
Yes.
And Ms. Miriam Cruz.
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to item number 5, consider and take action on the election of officers for Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Carlos?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, good afternoon. Carlos Gainad. So this is your business meeting, right? We discussed it the last time that we met. And if you read your bylaws, and I know you're going to have a chance to review the bylaws and make any amendments that you all may feel are necessary, but if you read the bylaws, it says that this body shall elect officers in the month of January. And so we just wanted to put this on the agenda for your consideration. It really is an item between the body, right, between the commissioners to see who they want to elect as chair, vice chair, secretary, and what else, Marwan? And a second vice chair. And a second vice chair. So that's all I really have as a point of introduction, but it really is an item that you all should consider amongst yourselves to select those 3 officers that you would want to see moving forward in 2022.
Is that something that has to be decided today, or?
I mean, preferably, right? That it is on the agenda. It is on your bylaws, and so I don't have enough experience to tell you how you all have in the past handled it. But you know, in other bodies that I have been a part of, there's a nomination, there's a self-nomination. Marwan, I'm not sure if you want to add anything else, just in terms of how they could go about it.
Yeah, I think you guys can entertain a motion by anybody for chairperson, first vice chair, second vice chair, executive secretary. I think probably it's important that you can decide on the positions today. Just because if somebody doesn't show up in the next meeting and you don't have the right people here, it can get stuck. Because the point of the officers and the chairperson is to still keep the meeting moving on smoothly and having a backup and a third backup, just so the business keeps continuing even if one person's out for some reason. And then the last thing, the executive secretary, it doesn't have to be, but typically, and then bylaws law does, it's a member of the staff of the planning department. And I think technically it might be Judith. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yes. So you can also approve her as the executive secretary if you wish. And that's the person that takes the minutes and writes, the decisions of the planning and zoning commission.
Mr. Chair, and then just so that you all know, so currently we have obviously Mr. Arroyos as chairman, we have Mr. Cisneros as first vice chair, Mr. David Estrada as second vice chair, and then we have, the bylaws have Claudia Olguin, which was part of our planning staff. She's no longer with us. I believe since she's been gone, Judith has assumed those roles, or that role. In regards to Marwan's comment, we would like to have you consider Eunice Marquez as the secretary. She just got promoted to, and I'll talk about it in just a second, but she just got promoted to planning tech, and so it seems appropriate that she would be the appropriate person to be the secretary. And so I hope that helps, gives you some information.
Sure. Ms. Eunice Marquez, would you like to be our secretary? Okay, great. So that one solves that one.
So do we have to vote one by one?
Yeah, I think
or
you need,
both?
yes, I think you would, right, one of my suggestions is maybe they vote individually.
Yeah, you can, if, you know, it's really up to you guys. If somebody has an interest in one of those positions, you can let each other know right now that, hey, you know, I'm interested. If you just want to nominate somebody, you can also maybe ask for permission to be like, hey, I want to nominate you, are you okay with it? Yeah, sure, that's fine. So, you know, I don't think there's unfortunately any great prize that anybody gets for being in any of the positions. I will say that, you know, you probably have the responsibility to make sure that you're here most of the time. And if you're going to be the chairperson, so, you know, you just, because you want somebody to conduct the meetings and, like I said, keep a regular conduct of the meetings. So if you anticipate for some reason that you might be out a lot or you've got something going on, it's fine too, but it's just, that's why we have the backup, so.
Mr. Ruiz, would you like to become chairperson?
Yes, I would like to, I guess, but can I make a motion to nominate myself as chair? Is that
I think in this case, if Ms. Dominguez has nominated you, I just think you just need a second.
Yes, I will put that as a nomination.
I would like to second that.
And I'd like to throw in my hat for chair. Just because I think that some change every year might be, you know, welcomed. So I'll just throw in my hat.
Marwan, do you need to just call the question for the first one, and then if it doesn't get enough votes,
Yeah,
call
so
the question again?
that's probably the best way to handle it, is that we have a motion and then we have a second, and then we'll have a motion on this one too.
Okay.
So if we maybe want to call, I guess the question to vote, on Mr. Arroyo's?
Yes, I think the question, just for clarification, right, there was a motion and a second for Mr. Arroyo's as the chairman.
That's right.
They should vote on that one. If it passes, it passes. It fails, then Ms. Cruz could then make her
Right.
nomination, right?
That's right.
Yep, okay. So you have a
So I have a motion made by Ms. Julie Dominguez and seconded by Mr. Andrew Arroyos, correct? For chair.
Right.
Great, now I'd like to take your votes. Mr. Andrew Arroyos?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Enrique Cisneros is absent. Mr. Ernest Gomez is absent. Mr. David Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Arturo Lafuente?
Yes.
Ms. Julie Dominguez?
Yes.
And Ms. Miriam Cruz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then the same process for first and second vice chairs.
The first chairmaster right now is who?
The first chair
Mr.
is
Cisneros and Mr. Estrada.
Mr. Cisneros.
Mr. Cisneros? Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So
I'll nominate Mr. Cisneros.
You're just gonna keep it the same? So why don't we just make one motion?
Yeah, you made a comment earlier, though, I didn't hear you.
That I was throwing my hat in, I like to be an alternate or a chair. Yeah. I just, I mean, Mr. Cisneros isn't even here, so we don't know if he'd like to want that responsibility. Mr. Estrada, you're also a chair, a second chair. Is that something you'd want to continue to? Yeah. You don't want to be the first alternate?
I'm good how it is right now.
Okay.
So I'd like to vote Mr. Enrique Cisneros in second, as first vice chair.
Do we have a
I
second?
second.
Yes.
Yep.
So I have a motion made by Mr. Andrew Arroyos to vote Mr. Cisneros in for first chair and seconded by Ms. Julie Dominguez. Mr. Andrew Arroyos?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Enrique Cisneros is absent. Mr. Ernest Gomez is absent as well. Mr. David Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Arturo Lafuente?
Yes.
Ms. Julie Dominguez?
Yes?
And Ms. Miriam Cruz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And then finally, second vice chair.
I'd
Second.
like to
I'll second the motion.
Can we just do the last two, so we're not voting so many times?
Did we do Ms. Marcus already?
Right, no, we haven't.
Yeah.
You can do it together,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I'd also like to ask Ms. Marcus if she'd like to come in executive.
I'll second that.
Call the question, please.
So I have a motion made by, for the second chair, made by Mr. Andrew Arroyos and seconded by Ms. Julie Dominguez, as well as secretary for Ms. Eunice Marquez, made by Mr. Andrew Arroyos and seconded by Ms. Julie Dominguez. And I would like to take your votes. Mr. Andrew Arroyos?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Enrique Cisneros is absent. Mr. Ernest Gomez is absent. Mr. David Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Arturo Lafuente?
Yes.
Ms. Julie Dominguez?
Yes?
And Ms. Miriam Cruz.
Yes.
Motion carried. Moving on to item number 6, consider and take action on the bylaws of Planning and Zoning Commission. Carlos?
So, Mr. Chair, again, this one is just one of those regular business, annual business items. The bylaws do, have you all review the bylaws in the month of January as part of your business meeting. I think this is one of those items that also pertains to the body. I'm not sure that staff has any major recommendations. I have one comment, perhaps from Erwan, that I would like to make, and then again, obviously, the bylaws are a living document that you all could make amendments and changes to it as you see fit. The only item that I would bring to your attention is the item that speaks of utilizing Robert's Rules of Order to conduct the business of the commission. I'm not an expert on Robert's Rules of Order, but I am not 100% sure that the body is following that method of meeting process of the processes of conducting a business meeting. Rowan, I'm not sure if you want to chime in. One example that I could give you is when a motion is made and someone is seconded, then you call the question, right? So again, my experience has been that when Eunice, for example, would call the question, it's either yea or nay, right? They then, the way that the bylaws are explained is that then if there's confusion in the way that people are voting, then you would call the question individually. So again, I'm just, when a question, hey, item to approve rezoning on something Horizon Boulevard. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Right? I don't know if that has been customary in the past, but again, my experience has been that that's usually how a vote is called when it's Robert's Rules, but it's your bylaws, not mine, so just, that's one item that I would just like to bring to your attention.
You're saying, Carlos, versus like individual polling on who's yes or who's no?
Yeah, correct. And then, the other thing too that I think that what that does, the way that we're conducting the meeting, and again, I don't think it's happened here, but if it's a controversial item and we're going down the line, then the last person, which is typically Ms. Cruz, if it looks like it's going to be tied, then you're giving, not because it's Ms. Cruz, but you're giving the position, you're giving some degree of leverage to the last person that's voting because they've already seen how the votes are coming down, right?
Yeah, that's a good point, Carlos, is that, what we've been doing is not technically following the Robert Rules of Order. It might be a good idea to also kind of go over some of those basic rules at a different meeting.
Yeah.
It's not being covered today, but.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, so, it really should be a simultaneous vote.
That's
So
right.
everybody, okay, we're taking a vote, and it's everybody's yes or everybody's no. Because that's right. And it's just not one particular person, but it's just, you don't want to kind of see somebody else's vote in advance and say, well, he said yes, she said no, so I'm going to go this way. So it's supposed to be, in some places too, they do, like if you see some, I don't think the city council here does like that, but a lot of times it's like anonymous voting. So they'll just like press a button for yes or no, and then it just pops up on the screen on how many yeses, how many no's.
Yeah.
So you actually never even hear the person say, it just shows up there. it's to also kind of protect your vote so that you can kind of go the way that you want to at the time you're thinking, and not, maybe be called out by somebody else or feel pressure also, with the public each time on, okay, it's counting on your vote now, and there's members of the public, because it should be kind of free of pressure. You should be able to make your mind the way you want to do it.
Is there any language on the Robert's Rules of Order to where the chairperson would be like a tiebreaker or be like the last person to vote?
I think the way our bylaw set up, it gives everybody one vote, including the chairperson. That's all the bylaws say on that. So I don't think it's necessarily a tie-breaking vote. I think because of, there's certain like state rules, state statutes that, like, okay, it's got to be a majority or it's got to be a two-third vote. So it doesn't want to give one importance, more importance to one vote than the other. Really, the whole point of the chairperson and everything, again, is for the chairperson to conduct the order of the meeting. So you can actually say, okay, now we're going to take up this motion, or now we're going to, this person seconded it, or I'm enforcing the time limits, or the time limits. So it's really the flow of the meeting. So that, and also that people aren't interrupting each other, or getting into it with each other, or not allowing somebody to speak. So that's kind of just kind of following the order of things. So.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know I had mentioned this to Mr. Aguilar previously, but I know I've Googled the Robert's Rules of Order, and that there's different versions, and they might be outdated versions or just different companies that put them out there. And so one of the things that I had requested is that if we can decide on a specific, version or specific language to follow, and that way we know what the rules are, and we're not each, Googling and going by, something that we saw in one meeting or versus something that we saw somewhere else. And so I don't know if that's something that maybe we could further, try and clarify so we know exactly what the rules are, and there's no question about which Robert's rules.
Yeah, that's something I think we can, and it'll be a subsequent meeting that we can, maybe provide a printout of some of the basic rules. If you look throughout, they get very, very kind of complicated, maybe some things that don't really pertain here. But that might help, is just having maybe the basic rules printed out for everybody.
Exactly.
And maybe going over them so that you can kind of understand. But again, most of the Robert rules is just, it's allowing for people to make a motion, second it. It's to prevent interruptions, because a lot of times, you'll get sidetracked, or one person's kind of going in one direction. But again, to keep it moving, we don't usually have that many agenda items anyway, but
Yeah.
you could have a meeting where there's 30 items, and it can go, until the middle of the night. And so you're gonna have to keep it moving. And we haven't had a lot of members of the public right now during the COVID time. But before then, sometimes you could have a full audience of people, and there might be 30 people lined up to speak. It's like, okay, you're gonna have to enforce the time limit, so everybody gets a chance. So that's something we can kind of go over, I think, if it's helpful to you guys as well.
Is there a website where we could refresh our memories?
Yeah, so the Robert rules are available online. I don't know if it's directly from the organization that puts it out, but there's different versions of it. I think the most current version is the one is what we're referring to in the bylaws. But that's something we can send an email to,
Yeah.
I think, of the most current version.
Okay, and if you could send us options of which one do we really want to go by? And tell us
Yeah,
the
so we
differences?
could do a little bit more research, and then in a future meeting, maybe in February, maybe bring the item up again for discussion, Mr. Chair, and you guys could review it. I think Marwan's point is well taken. You don't have to decide tonight, but just wanted to bring it to your attention, right, that there may be some just ways of looking at Robert's rules and making sure that that it's being followed so that the meeting is run a little bit more efficiently. The other one that I would call to your attention to is item F, and that's just the process in which your bylaws say that you shall hear cases. I don't know that we have been following this, so the item F says that staff will make a presentation, then you hear from the applicant, then you could hear from the citizens opposing it,
Sorry, what page are you on?
Yes, ma'am, page 9 of 10, item F.
Thank you.
Right, so just the order of the presentations, right, that the staff would make a presentation. I think the way that we've been doing it in the past is, even before I present, you're asking the public to make comments, right? They haven't really heard the extent of the presentation. And so maybe moving forward, I could just remind ourselves, hey, Carlos Gallinado will make the presentation. The applicant may want to say a few words. He or she makes a presentation. If there's people wanting to speak against it, then they make a presentation. I think at some point when you all feel comfortable enough that you have enough information, then you close it just to you all. Then the deliberation is between the commission, and staff can only interject when asked. And so, again, just to want to make sure that we're being fair when we're following the bylaws. And so if you're okay with that, Mr. Chair, in subsequent meetings, I'll just, make a little note that this is what your bylaws call for in terms of the presentation.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
So just so you know, because I know you just started not too long ago, Mr. Gallinado, this is actually something that I pointed out years ago to Mr. Terrazas, who used to actually give the presentations, because one of my struggles as part of the public who wanted to speak on these items was exactly that, without having the presentation given before and with limited information and backup, it's usually hard for me, it was hard for me to want to speak. And it wasn't until after the information was provided that then I had maybe more of a better opinion of what to say. And so I know that it's been actually a few years ago that I pointed this out, that it was actually in the bylaws, that this is exactly what we should, that the planning and zoning at that time should have been doing. But I appreciate that you are bringing this back up, because I do think it's important, again, because I'm not the only member of the public, or was the only member of the public wanting to speak. I think moving forward, this is going to be very, very helpful for all of them, because I think we've even heard it from members of the public who have said, well, we want to hear first what's going on. I mean, they've said it themselves too, and so I think that's going to be very important. The only thing that I don't see here, and that I would like to caution, obviously the presentation from the staff is very important, and sometimes they may take longer than other times, but I don't see any time limits for the presentation by the applicant. I know that usually during a public hearing, right, Marwan, that it should be a minute and a half. So would that be applied to the applicant, proponents, opponents, and then the rebuttal by the applicant again?
I think there's actually,
Because obviously that wouldn't apply to you. I mean,
Sure.
unless you want to see if you can stay within a minute and a half.
I can't.
Yeah, right.
yeah, I think the only time limit that I've seen on here maybe is on page 8 of 10. It refers to a 5 minute time limit on open forum. But, you guys do have the flexibility that if you want to put time limits, you can. Just keep in mind, anything that you do to change the bylaws, though, kind of becomes permanent until somebody else undoes it in the future. And I think I remember seeing this here, that I think the 2/3 vote required to change the bylaws, if I'm not mistaken.
And just to clarify, just by the body, right? We don't have to take this to city council or to the public to vote on or anything like that? It's just our own bylaws?
Yeah, Planning and Zoning Commission can make the changes to the bylaws.
And so Eunice, I think right now, if you could let us know, when people from the public speak during public comment, during the first public comment, they're limited to 3 minutes? And then when they speak on an item for public comment, it's a minute and a half, or is it 3 minutes? Okay, and,
It's actually 5 minutes. If you look at item 8, if an individual has signed up to speak on open forum, it's 5.
right. So I think what she was mentioning is what we've been following, because I think that's what city council does, and I'm sure that's what you were told to do, so, I mean, that's what you were doing. And that's fine, but I think that is something that we should consider just because I remember one time there was an applicant that, I mean, you know, definitely want to hear their backstory, but was talking about his daughters and going on about what schools they went to and this and that. And I mean, it started going off topic and the time was never ending. So I wanted to point that out. Maybe we want to.
So Ms. Cruz, you are free to make suggestions to your bylaws.
I'm sorry?
You are, if you like to make a motion with suggested language that you would like to see added, that would be okay.
So let me read really quick, page 8. Called.
So right now
Right,
it's
so,
5 minutes.
I'm sorry, so right now, like, so it doesn't apply to you, but I don't think that the bylaws say that it doesn't apply to you. Because you would be giving the presentation during open forum, right?
No, ma'am, I think open forum is that
Afterwards,
no,
after
ma'am,
you,
I think open forum is call to the public.
is what?
Is that item on the agenda that's always at
Oh,
the
the
beginning?
first one.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
So then you're saying there's maybe no time limits necessarily applied to the public
Yes.
comment on
Yes.
a public,
Yes, so
Okay.
open forum, I'm sorry, Ms. Cruz, so open forum, as stated in your agenda, is that notice to the public at the
Right,
beginning of
so
the
at the
meeting. So
beginning
that
of
is
the
5 minutes.
okay,
I don't believe that there are time limits on anything else.
right, okay. And so I guess, what do you all think would be a good amount of time for, during public comment? Right now, they're only getting 1.5 minutes. That usually only applies to everyone else that's not an applicant. Usually applicant can just talk and talk and talk and rebuttal instead of having, you know, this amount of time. So I think 3 minutes for everyone? I think that makes sense. I mean, obviously we have to consider our times and, you know, the length of meetings, but I think 3 minutes. So I'd like to make a motion to put a time limit in our bylaws for Section F of Article 10, titled Committees, so that we have a time limit for the presentations that are given and the rebuttal. So 1 through 5, well, actually, sorry, 2 through 5 would have a time limit of 3 minutes each per person. So that would be 3 minutes for the applicant, 3 minutes for each proponent or each opponent, and then 3 minutes again by the further rebuttal by the applicant at the end.
I second that.
I have a motion made by Ms. Miriam Cruz and seconded by Mr. Andrew Arroyos for a 3-minute approval timeline in the bylaws on Section F, Article 10 for presentations. Now I'd like to take your votes. And I do want to mention that Mr. Cisneros arrived at 5:26.
And before we take the vote, as a point of clarification, Mr. Marwat, we can always extend that as a body if requested, right?
That's right, so you can always make a motion to extend the time limits.
Thank you, sir.
Correct. Mr. Andrew Arroyos?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Enrique Cisneros?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ernest Gomez is absent. Mr. David Estrada? Mr. Arturo Lafuente?
Yes.
Ms. Julie Dominguez?
Yes?
And Ms. Miriam Cruz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Going back to what we were talking about voting anonymously, I think that's best, without having to make anybody who made the motion to feel pressured or harassed or
Sure.
by the public.
Yeah,
think
on
to
the
protect
calling the
everybody.
question and then just voting up or down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that is part of Robert's rules, Mr. Chair, so I know we're pending the official sort of Robert's Rules of Order condensed version that we'll send you, but if, I mean, at the end of the day, you're the chair, you could call the question however you like, and so if you like moving forward and Marwan is okay with it, Eunice will then just say, all those in favor, yay. All those opposed, nay.
Do we have the capability with technology, like Mr. Molan said, to,
We
Just
don't,
go by-
Marwan, right? We do the
Yeah, I don't know if city council doesn't use that either,
No.
oh,
Yeah, it would I think for right now, Ms. Dominguez, it would just be calling the question, and again, instead of going individually down the line, all those in favor say yay, all those in favor say nay. I think 9 out of 10 applications or cases are pretty easy, right? They're usually unanimous,
right.
yes, for the most part, right? So, I mean, it's up to you, Mr. Chair.
I like to keep it anonymous, just all like that, without no,
My personal opinion is I like the way that, you know, we can each cast our vote. And the director is absolutely correct that there's only like one every 2 or 3 meetings where it gets kind of down to the wire where we'll vote for it or vote against it. So I think the unintended consequences, in my opinion, is 95% of the cases, easy, yay, up and down. But I think the more tools we give ourselves in that 2 or 3 or 5% of cases that are difficult, I would think that makes it easier for us in those situations. Or I think it's just an extra tool, but that's just my opinion. I think the only votes that will be affected are the really close ones. Is where it's kind of.
So the way that the way that it would work is that if, and I think it's in your bylaws, let me double check, but I think that it would work, Mr. Cisneros, is that if there's confusion in the way that people are voting yea or nay, then you call the question. Then you go individually, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's entirely up to you.
I guess, have you seen it where,
yeah, no, I think for the moment.
I guess, have you seen it where they call, like the way you've been talking about, where in unison you say one way or the other, and then potentially, like Mr. Cisneros is saying, if someone has a motion to cold call or roll call, then they would do it before, maybe during the motion is made, or before the motion is made of the actual item to roll call?
So that I have not seen. I mean,
Okay.
I don't even know. So, Mr. Cisneros, the other, I'm sorry, Ms. Cruz, so I have not seen that. Doesn't mean it can't be done, right, or it's not appropriate. I just haven't seen it. But just to reiterate to Mr. Cisneros, so before you walked in, sir, one of the items that we were talking about is that having a roll call individually one by one may sway the final person's vote after having seen how everybody else has voted. Their vote may lead to a tie, or their vote may lead to take the either deny or approve, right? I'm not saying it's happened here. I don't think I've seen it happen here, but you have that tendency. And again, it's just something for you all to consider, right? Just in terms of how you look at it. And then again, that notwithstanding, it's just easier for staff to call the question yay or nay. It's a little bit faster, right? And everybody will pick up on all the yays. Everybody will pick up on all the nays. And if there's confusion, then the chair can say, call the question, or do the roll call. And then that way you have one by one.
I'd like to make a motion, I guess, to change it to the yea or nay, and then, again, if it needs to, if it's not clarified or whatnot, we can change it to the roll call afterwards.
Do we have to make a motion? Because isn't it just following Robert's rules?
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to make a motion on that, but, I guess it can be clarified or
Yeah.
if that's what you guys intend to do, so.
Okay.
As far as the bylaws as we speak right now, can we take more time to review what's currently updated, and then we'll come back, and so we won't have to be going back and forth?
Yes, ma'am. So if you like, we could post the agenda item for another meeting, and then you can make amendments anytime, right? I mean, it's a living document. The bylaws just say that it's usually done during the business meeting. But if you like, Ms. Dominguez, we could bring it back to another meeting where we may not have as many items, Mr. Chair, and then you'd have a chance to review it as part of the backup.
Maybe or make it to a special meeting so we could just discuss that amongst ourselves
Okay.
without having to hold anybody else up.
That can work?
I guess what we could even do is during a commissioner's report, we can ask staff for the next meeting, hey, we want to address this, and then they could put it on the minutes, and then we could take a vote on it. Am I correct in that?
Yes, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll have a better idea of items that are coming up. I can tell you that the next one seems to be a little bit packed with a lot of items. Everybody decided to submit their applications in January. So we might have, but yes, that's right, Mr. Cisneros. So depending on, I could let you know, depending on how we're seeing the agenda item being too stacked or too full, then we could let you know, and then you guys could decide if you want us to bring the item back to you.
Pretty much most of the guidelines, most of the bylaws right now are under the guidelines of the Robert's Rules of Order, right now?
I believe so, yes, correct.
I make a motion to postpone until we all want to review the same, what is it? The same set of bylaws?
Yeah, except with Ms. Cruz's motion passed, right, about the 3 minutes?
Right,
Yeah, okay.
I
So
think
we'll change
that,
that one.
I think that one of the things that the city council did when they were reviewing their charter was that they split it up by section so that everyone knew ahead of time what section they were going to focus on. And I think if we can do that, that may split it up in a way that it's not too cumbersome in one meeting. And then two, it allows us to focus on one section and then for all of us to bring in notes or details. And so I don't think there's a need to postpone, especially since the motion was already passed, like Mr. Gallinar said, but I think we can, I guess, direct staff to divide it up
Sure.
into sections and bring back each article. And you would know, Mr. Gallinar, when our meetings are going to be, full and when they're not.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, for example, you already said next meeting, we might expect 8 things in the agenda. Maybe we don't want to do it one then, but then maybe the following one, it's
Sure.
not too much, and so maybe we do tackle Article 1, and so on and so forth. So, I guess, I think if we can do it that way, there's really no need for a motion. Right, Mr. Arwan?
Yeah, I think what we could do, and I kind of hear what Mr. Dominguez was saying, was if you want, maybe we can put another item on the next agenda again, that consider and take action to amend the bylaws. So we do have bylaws in place today, and there's one change to it. And then if you want to make changes again next time, you can. If you don't want to take it up, then you can put it again on the next meeting. But that way, it's kind of there as a placehold so that it allows you to amend it. So if you guys go back home and you look at it, and you're like, okay, I want to bring this up the next meeting, it'll be scheduled on there. You don't have to, but it gives you the room. If we don't put it on there, then you can't.
Right.
But we can pretty much amend any of the bylaws or whatnot as we go during the year.
Yes, sir.
and whatnot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do it at any time.
So if you like Marwan's suggestion, we could leave it as is, and then again, bring it back next meeting, depending on the volume of cases, if not, the following one.
So do we make a motion to leave it the way it is?
With the change
Except for the change for the three minutes?
Yeah,
Right.
Ms. Cruz's motion passed already on, so we'll change, that one's gonna change, and you'll see it reflected at the next time that we bring it. I don't think they need a motion, right?
No, you can just place it on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll just place it on the agenda.
As long as we give
Yeah.
public notice.
For the meantime, which Robert's Laws version do you suggest we look at first?
Probably the latest version. I haven't seen what is the latest version, but what we can do is send that out to you guys as well before that next meeting.
Okay.
Because I think there probably is the last version. I don't know if it's updated every year. But, and I don't know if the changes from year to year or something are that major. It's very minor. I mean, there's groups of people, there's like some real nerds that they love these rules and they go over them and
nothing wrong with nerds.
They have clubs that meet, I mean, that's how, you know, it's not meant to be complicated for you guys. It's really to give structure to your meeting and just let you move things. But, you know, I don't want you guys to take it as, oh, it's just some giant legal thing and we have to follow it. And it's not that. I mean, it's really just how to conduct a public meeting. I think overall you guys do a good job of moving it along, and it's not usually that complicated. We don't have too many items, and we don't have that many people speaking. But you know, the main thing, and I kind of want to bring this up because I heard it a couple times, even on the time limits, is you always want to give the public kind of a fair hearing on something and give them the time to talk. It might go over the time limits. You can move to extend it, but you want to let them have their say and say their piece. But at the same time, there is a balance, as we had discussed on the time limits. Is that okay? It's going too far. You just want to keep in mind too that if, let's say you put a time limit on an applicant and he comes up, but then you're asking him a whole bunch of questions. Well, he didn't get his 5 minutes of uninterrupted time. So if you're going to do that, you just want to make sure, okay, I will give you 5 minutes, say whatever you want. Okay, now we're going to ask questions. Because your questions might be for like 30 minutes. You know, but the guy didn't get 5 minutes to talk, and so you always want to give them the opportunity because, you know, again, members of the public, if they feel like they don't get a fair hearing, you know, they have legal causes of action if they don't feel like they got, you know, basically equal opportunity in front of the public body. And so.
What I just don't want, I don't want two constituents to be arguing while they're in the podium. Like, I'm gonna go say this, and I'm gonna go say this after my 3 minutes, or I just don't want that. I just want for them to each have their 3 minutes and just go with the flow, because if not, we'll be here forever.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it also matters how the chairman handles the meeting, right? To Marwan's point is correct. Make sure everybody gets equal time. But Ms. Dominguez is also right that you don't want, you know, after a while you have the person say the same thing. At that point, Mr. Chair, you could say we're closing all public comment only to the commission. The discussion should only be amongst you.
Do we have somebody time that, or is it something that I have to?
Yeah, the secretary times it.
And, you know, it may help to also just, again, I don't think we usually do this, but state the time limit. So somebody's about to speak, you can tell them, okay, look, we have 5 minutes or 3 minutes for your comments, and then we have to kind of move on to the next thing. On the days that you see if there's, you know, 28 people sitting here and they're all here on one item, and that one might be the time to really reiterate to them, okay, guys, we're going to start public comment right now. Each person has 3 minutes, and then we have to move to the next person. And so, you know, it sounds a little bit harsh, you know, but it's to give everybody a chance, because somebody may not get a chance to speak. So it's just, you know, you guys kind of set the terms on how it's going to go, but it's to keep it moving, give everybody a chance. So.
And I guess I will just say that I think that makes sense, Eunice, if you remind them right before they're gonna talk, you know, you have 3 minutes, your 3 minutes start now, or something, that way I think that would be, I know that, I find that helpful when when I do that at city council, that I'm like, oh yeah, it's a reminder that I only have so much time. And some people go up there with their phones or, you know, their computers, so they keep track. But I think that's definitely something we want to implement moving forward, for sure.
I would like to tell everybody that if I do that or whatnot, it's not to be personal, and nothing personal, when I just to try and keep everything moving.
Yeah, that's right.
Without having to put Mr. Arroyo's on the spotlight, do we have like a time frame we could put on the screen?
Actually, there is a tool that I've seen used where it's like a clock that's running. So let me look into that. So there is such a thing. I need to see what that looks like, Ms. Dominguez.
We don't
And
wanna
maybe it's a
make
big
him
old
look
clock,
like a
Eunice, that
bad guy here.
you hit whenever, you know, and it's a countdown for the 3 minutes. Yeah, it's a good idea. We could look into that.
Okay, thank you.
And this doesn't have to do with our bylaws, but it does have to do with the way we conduct our meeting. Maybe I can ask and then you'll tell me, Marwan, if I should shut up. But I know that sometimes when people do come up and speak, they think that we're these people.
Yes.
And so I don't think since we're a voluntary position, that we need new placards, but I think that maybe just a paper, slider would probably help them so that they know who they're talking to or who's voting and who's
Yes, ma'am.
saying what.
It's a great point. It's
And-
something that I had thought about and had talked to Judith about, so we'll get that for
Okay,
you.
great, because I almost made my own. I was, gonna start just writing my name, and
Yeah,
I think it's important that they know
yes, ma'am.
who's saying what.
Great point.
I think we're,
Okay, so we're ready to move to item number 7.
Yes, ma'am.
Consider and take action on the 2022 meeting calendar. Mr. Carlos?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, so you had reviewed this back in November. We had talked about the meetings for December. Just wanted to bring it back and for you all to officially vote on it. It still has your meetings on the first Tuesday and third Tuesday, first and third Tuesdays of the month. We're not making any changes to that schedule, and so just wanted to have you vote on it. It's helpful for staff and the city manager and everybody else to just have a calendar that includes city council, P&Z, Board of Adjustments, Historic Landmark Commission on it. So that's why you see all the different meetings. But again, for your meetings, it's going to be the first and third Tuesdays of the month.
Make a motion to approve?
A second.
We have a motion made by Mr. Enrique Cisneros and seconded by Mr. Andrew Arroyos. And now I'd like to take your votes. Mr. Andrew Arroyos?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Enrique Cisneros?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Ernest Gomez is absent. Mr. David Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Arturo Lafuente?
Yes.
Ms. Julie Dominguez?
Yes?
And Ms. Miriam Cruz.
sorry, I'm just checking my calendar. Give me a second. Yes.
Thank you so much. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 8, Planning and Zoning Commissioners Report.
Eunice, I'm sorry, Marwan, if I can interrupt. So that was the one, since we just changed the rules down to voting, I can, on the next item, what you can do is if we say, okay, somebody made a motion in a second, we'll just say, okay, all those in favor vote aye. Now you still need to write down their names though, one said yes, and then all opposed, Sue says no, and you still need to write their names down at the end, but you can ask it all at one time, so that way you don't have to ask each name.
Okay.
And it'll take
So
some
it'll be
practice.
a voice or will it be like hands?
It'll be by hands, but if you're unsure, ask the person, so if they're just scratching themselves, and you're like,
Okay.
yes, or you put your hand, halfway.
Well, and don't forget abstain, but, I mean, that one probably would be only if you're missing someone, right?
Yeah.
Or you think someone hasn't voted.
Okay.
So you don't have to say that one all the time, I guess.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. Let's do the next one.
So we're in the Commissioner's Report.
I don't have anything to report unless anybody else does.
I guess the only thing was I'm gonna give you all fair notice right now that I might miss November 1st meeting of this year. It's probably only one, but, the only other thing, I was looking for it in the bylaws because I was pretty sure, but now I'm thinking maybe it's in the charter that says that our meetings are supposed to be at 6. And I know that a while back, the commission changed it to 5:30, and I remember last time I had said that I wanted to bring it back to the commission to see if we wanted to consider putting the meetings back at 6. And
I think it would be, my opinion would be best if we do it at 5:30, gives us who do work time limit to get to the meeting in time.
You want to take a vote for that and see who's available at 5:30 or 6 o'clock?
I like 5:30.
you do like 5:30.
5:30 too.
Everyone. Okay, then I'm the only one. I did want to bring it up because I do think that it's in the charter.
We'll check. I don't remember seeing
Right,
it.
and then maybe just we need to change that. But if it's not in the, like I remember it seeing somewhere, if it wasn't in the ordinances or in the bylaws, then I must have seen it in the charter. So just so that we can make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to and change it if we're not gonna do it. But yeah, I mean, either one is okay, I guess. Just would like some time to get some food in me.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, Planning and Zoning Department report.
Mr. Chair, once again, Carlos Gainar. So I know this is the business meeting. I just wanted to do a few things as part of this item. First and foremost, I want to make sure that I acknowledge our staff, thank our staff. I know that for many of you, you're seeing some not familiar faces. We've had, obviously, in the past 6 months, a great number of changes in our department, including with my position. You know, I've only been here now 7 months. But in the course of 7 months, we have, given some promotions to some staff, hired new staff. And so as we move forward, I want to make sure that you as a P&Z know who the staff is. And so I'll start with Mr. Jose Valderrama, who is our building official. And Jose, you want to stand up, say hi?
Hello.
And Jose is from Socorro. Lots of great experience in the construction fields. One of the first meetings that I had with him, we drove around showing him to different locations of the city of Socorro. We had a meeting with Mr. Chavez over at Public Works, and within 5 minutes of starting the meeting, it turns out that Joe and Louis had like cousins and tios and tias and had some people in common. And so again, Jose Valderrama, great, so happy to have him on board. Great experience. He's a great asset to the department and has already seen a number of changes that he's implemented. So again, Jose Valderrama as the building official.
The title again, Mr. Reina?
What's the question?
His title?
His title is building official.
Building official,
Mhm.
thank you.
And then Mr. Guadalupe Jaques, who is awesome, right? Mr. Jaques has been, I think out of all of us, he's been here the longest, 2015, so going on 7 years, Mr. Jaques. I think you all are familiar with Mr. Jaques. He used to be the planning tech, and in the past 3 months got promoted to building inspector. And so Mr. Jaques, I think those of you who've done work here in Socorro have seen Mr. Jaques out in the field. He's a great resource to me and to our staff anytime that there's a question on the history of the department and where's this plat and where's this record. Mr. Jaques knows a lot of history of the department, so also really happy to have him on board. And then Eunice Marquez, who has also been here, started off with Parks and Rec, has been in planning and zoning now for 2 years. She got promoted to planning tech. So she took the position that Mr. Jaques had, and so she will officially started January 1st, but there's a little bit of transition there as we hire another planning clerk. And so again, just wanted to make sure that people recognize Eunice. And then we have Judith Rodriguez, who's also a great asset. Just wonderful and great to have Judith on board. And she's just of service, right? She's these people that just, you ask her to do anything, not only does she do it, but she goes above and beyond. So happy to also have Judith here. And then we have Yadira Magana, who is our recent hire, about 3 months now, Yadira? Yeah, right? And also great to have her on board. She's hit the ground running, very little learning curve for Yadira. She's been working with Judith and Eunice on the front of the house, so to speak, so you'll see them as well. And then we have Marwan Bhatti, who is our attorney and also a great asset to the department. Always happy to see Marwan here at the meetings. And then finally, although not part of our department, but always provide great service to our meetings, is Diana Rodriguez and Anthony Sida. Diana is with Parks and Rec, and Anthony is with IT, but we couldn't manage the meetings without them, right? Especially during COVID and Zoom and online, and they keep the meetings running, so really grateful to them for everything that they do. And so that's essentially the staff that you'll see for the planning and zoning moving forward. Again, if there's any questions, I'm always available, but if there's specific questions, my staff and your staff is also available. So just wanted to make sure that we introduce them, and again, want to say to them how grateful and appreciative I am of all their work and everything that they do for us. Yeah, so that's it, Mr. Chair, on the staff. On the department activities, it's a handout that I have in front of you. What we wanted to do is just to give us, right, too, and give you an idea of the volume of work that this department handles. And so we implemented an Acela program back in March. And so the data that's in front of you is only between March and December. So it's missing January and February, but it still gives you an idea of the volume of work that we've done in 2021. So the first line item, which is mostly building permits and some building inspection applications, we managed 1,242 of those items and collected $369,000 for the city of Socorro. On registrations, which are business registrations, Yadira, is that correct? We handled 75, and that number is a little bit of a misnomer because many of these actually not many, all of the applications will come in on March 15th. That's what the city's charter says. And so March 15th, you'll see about 1,200, 1,300 applications come in. I'm not sure that we hadn't put them into a CELA just yet, so that's why you see 75. But it is a great number of volume of registrations that we managed throughout the year. And then in the zoning and subdivisions applications, we managed 61 of those and collected $45,000 for the city of Socorro. And then letters, certificates of occupancy, almost 400 of those, and those came in at 17,180. And then in total, just the volume again between March and December, 1,777 sort of transactions that this department managed and collected $800,941 for the city of Socorro, which is great. And again, really proud of the work that these folks, it's mostly all them, quite frankly. Really proud of the work that they're doing, and you should be proud of your staff. You should be proud of this department, and hopefully we'll just continue to move forward, and next year maybe have a little bit more of a bump on these numbers. But you all live here, you all experience it, you know that there is a great number of volume happening in terms of development in the city of Socorro. And so again, really proud to be here and be able to present this information to you.
Thank you
Mr.
all.
Gainar, I got a question. Is there a percentage of how much on the building permits was new construction as to what was just? Will we be able to do that? Do we have that in the CELA? Percentage between new and, we could get that for you. And without looking at it, I want to say it's probably 95%. Is it 95% new or less? About 95?
It's around there.
Yeah. So it's almost the majority of that is new construction. But we could get that information for you and break it down for you.
Yeah, I have to, I just was curious.
It's a lot. It's a high number.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for introducing everyone, because I don't
Sure.
think I was, 1,000% on everyone's name, and some people are new to me. Congratulations on the promotions. Good for you. Good job. And I believe I'm familiar with most of these. The only one I have a question about are the letters and certificates of occupancy. Are those the letters that are sent out for whenever, we're having our meetings, or letters about, you need to clean up your yard, or we're gonna send, no? Okay, well, so what letters are we
So
referring to there?
sometimes we get people wanting a zoning verification letter, a subdivision verification letter. So it's Ms. Cruz comes in, hey, City of Socorro, I need a letter confirming what my zoning district is. It's $45, I believe. You pay it. Mr. Jaquez produces it, and it's just a letter that says your address at such and such Socorro is zone C1. So that's the letter. The certificates of occupancy is the CO that's given, and also that number. So a couple of things. One, that 399 is mostly COs, and those COs are mostly for residential. We have quite frankly, I mean, if you guys drive around, we have very little commercial activity, right? The activity is a lot of single-family residential, and so that's where we say the letters, Ms. Cruz.
Thank you.
I think the notice of violations, which is part of the building, Myrna, Workman, is the code enforcement. So those
Okay.
aren't here.
And those wouldn't be in your numbers?
What's-
Those wouldn't be in your numbers presented
No,
to city
correct.
council? Okay,
They fall
so
under
totally different.
police department.
Awesome,
Mhm.
thank you. And the letters that you mentioned, like, for example, residentials or residents are coming in to get that letter, I guess typically speaking, is that something that they're trying to use because they're trying to maybe sell their property, so they're just trying to confirm in sale, or, I guess I don't understand the
Or
need
is
for it, or what's
HLC?
usually it's being used for.
Yeah, it's
Historical?
a combination of things. It could be that. It could just be they're looking to refinance. It's just a combination of different things,
Combination,
yeah.
different things that they just need
Mhm.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Mr. Gallina, one last question. These funds go back into the planning and zoning department for operational costs?
They go back to the general fund.
General fund?
Yeah, our budget is, I believe, is about $1 million. And so I think, and remember, we're missing 2 months, so we're probably breaking even
Okay.
in terms of the department paying for our staff, our costs, and then what we submit to the city of Socorro. I don't know for sure if it's breaking even, but it's right around there. I'd like for it to be a plus, right, that we're contributing more than what we're taking out, but I think this time next year, we'll have a better idea because we'll track the whole year in terms of the volume.
And is there any more plans to continue to develop out in the ETJ? I mean, once we're kind of done with all of the farming land that's
Yeah.
inside the city, I mean, there's no way we'll even cut even. Is there any plans to kind of?
So, Mr. Cisneros, as far as I know, there aren't. I grin a little bit only because. So, a couple of things. One, as far as I know, I mean, I think that's a question at a city council level, right? As far as I've been here the past 7 months, I haven't heard that. Ms. Cruz had that item that we brought back several months back, and I asked Ms. Rodarte, the city manager. She said there's no plans, at least that she knows of. Obviously, that could change, I guess, any time. But as far as I know, there's no plans to annex any land in the ETJ. I was going to say that I grin a little bit only because you will run out of land, right, at some point. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. That's not for me to determine. That's for this community to determine. But you will, I mean, it's only, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I don't know. We don't have those projections. But you are building at a very rapid rate as a city. Yeah.
Are there any improvements to the city of Socorro by the planning department?
Improvements as such, what Mr. Lafuente?
Are there any improvements to the city of Socorro? Let's say to fix some avenues, roads,
Yeah, so those,
sidewalks?
that's done through the capital projects, capital improvements, and the projects that I know that, again, we don't manage it. Mr. Valderrama goes out and Mr. Jaques, they go out and do inspections for those projects, but they don't come under our purview. But that's really a city council, decision. I was going to say though that the one item that I know that's in the pipeline are sidewalks. We just finished sidewalks all along Moon Road, north of North Loop. There's a second phase that's coming that I think City Council is going to review on Thursday. But no, sir, that's the extent of it, right? The conversation about parks and rec centers and libraries and those sorts of improvements, I think that's what you're getting at, maybe, is really a conversation for City Council.
Is there any, in sidewalks, is there like a 2 or 3% for the whole city?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very small.
Can the city make some phone calls to the government because they have grants for this kind of cities, and we can improve our city of Socorro with those grants?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Lafuente, I can tell you that we have, so the answer to your question is yes, and I can tell you that we have Alejandra, who manages our grants department, who, in my estimation, does a great job, right? And so she's always looking out for grants. I think specific to the things that you're talking about, I think those are questions, again, that I can't answer because, as you know, these priorities come from City Council, right? It's the directives come from City Council through how they vote, through what they are looking at, what their priorities may be. And so in terms of the two, in addition to the sidewalks, the two major highway projects are the extension of Nuevo Hueco Tanks and Route 1. It's not Route 1, it's Arterial 1. Those are the two major projects. There's the Bovey Bridge Bridge improvement, Rio Vista improvement, and Passmore Shared Path. Those are the 5 sort of major capital projects in addition to the sidewalks, but those are projects that are being managed through the TxDOT and through the MPO. But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess, Mr. Lafuente, there's a a city council meeting this Thursday, so of course, you can go ask some very good questions at the city council meeting. I invite you
All right.
to join. What did you say? What was your question, Mr. Cisneros? Your question triggered a question that I wanted to make.
Well, my concern is whenever you look at a budget, it's great right now, but with all the development we're having and all, we're running out of
Oh, right.
agricultural land that we're developing into houses, which in my opinion is better. Not because I don't appreciate farms, I appreciate the tax, the property taxes coming into the community.
Yes, thank you.
My worry is,
Oh.
from here on out, the planning and zoning department's still gonna be a $1 billion budget necessity, and we, necessarily so, and we won't have
The funds.
the income or the tax base or the fees to sustain that department. So I know that that's at a much higher level than we are here, but it's just, down the road, it's gonna be concerning.
So, thank you for reminding, because it did trigger it again. So my question was, I believe about maybe a year and a half ago, City Council updated and increased some fees around the city,
Correct.
just generally speaking. And so I know since you just got here about 7 months ago, I don't know if you know what that difference is. Of course, I'm sure staff has helped you,
Yes, ma'am.
but then maybe the question, Mr. Cisneros, his inquiry begs the question, did we increase it enough, or should we reconsider increasing it? Not just for the sake of it, but to also change with the times, right? And so I understand that Socorro is a low-income community. I mean, I know that obviously from first-hand experience, I know that from others around us, and so I don't want to just, again, like I said, increase to increase, but I think it's important to look at the numbers and make sure that they are, to par with the community, with, the county, with whatever, to make sure that we are charging at the amount that we should be charging.
Yes, ma'am. So the fee schedule was changed in November of 2019, and it is the fee schedule that we are using. So whenever somebody comes in for a preliminary plat, final plat, all the different rezoning, so those current fees do reflect that change that City Council enacted in 2019. In terms of the question of whether that's enough, right? I don't know that I have an answer for you standing here, right? We'd have to do a comparison in terms of what other cities are charging of our comparable size, including
Right.
Horizon, City of El Paso.
And income, not just size.
What's that? Yeah, that's right.
And income, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that in terms of the fee, I think it's probably at where it needs to be. Again, could there be an increase? I don't have enough information to tell you yes or no, but I think in terms of where it is, I think it's good. Large developers, right? The Escobars, the CA engineering groups, they are able to pay the fee. It's sort of when you have a mom and pop coming in for a lot split, and they're having to do a preliminary plat and a final plat. That's $5,000 before it's all said and done.
Wow.
That's a considerable amount of money, right? But then again, you want to be fair to everybody. And so I could tell you that staff, we have this conversation all the time, right? When most developers are okay with it because it's the cost of doing business. But some residents, when they come in, do get a sticker shock. Wow, no sabía que era tanto. And we can't waive that fee. We don't have it, nor should we, right? We don't have that ability, nor do we want to have that ability, because then we start to pick and choose who we think should get the fee waiver. But there's also those things for you to consider, right? That the fee is typically should be fair across the board, and I think it probably is.
Okay.
There's a couple things that, if I could add to that. So I worked with City Council on changing the fee structure, I think in 2019. And so you guys know, City Council is the only one that can change those fees. It's usually a big deal because they're supposed to list all the fees, not just for hunting zoning, but for anything for the city. Let's say there's something in the park and they charge you at the park or something. But they have to do it once a year, so whenever they have their annual meeting, really they're supposed to adopt the fee schedule. And so some of those things too, I think in 2019, Texas legislature, they put limits on the fees, particularly on planning and zoning. And we actually had to change, there was an ordinance that we did in the city of Socorro to change the fees because they were going to be invalid. An example I think was they were charging it based on maybe on square footage or some other metric, and the legislature said, hey, that's not fair, you're punishing bigger developers, you're overcharging them. So they just changed the rules and said you can't change it. However, we changed, I think it was we got rid of the square footage perhaps.
It depends,
or
yeah.
limits, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the fee.
There's limits, so we had to go through and actually go through all the fees, so whenever that changed, it's because we had to get it in compliance with the law immediately because they were about to be invalid. And then the last thing on the fees thing is there's a balance, there's a whole area of law on this, but on how much you can charge for a fee, because really a fee is supposed to just cover the cost. So City of Socorro has staff, they have to send people out to the field, so there's a cost of processing applications, maybe they have to do research. The fee is to cover the cost, and that's it. It's not meant to be, let's say, a moneymaker. If it goes over what you charge or your cost, it's considered a tax. So if you're going to tax people, then you need to take it to the voters and go through a whole process. So there's a balance on how much maximum it can go. But that's kind of the process, so I just thought I would share that.
Thank you.
Mr. Body, one last thing. Is there a way that we can, if my memory serves me well, there was a change in the last 2 or 3 years where the state legislators imposed some, or had changed the rules about annexations? Is there a way that we can request that you look into that and give us kind of a synopsis of what those rules would be?
Yeah, sure, we can look into it. I think on the presentation,
We
because I
presented
wanted to do the PowerPoint.
Yeah. We could provide it to you.
Yeah.
I think the change was that the city cannot go in to annex a land where residents do not want to be annexed. That's about right. They have to
That's
vote.
right.
The residents have to vote to want to be annexed.
That's right.
Right.
It tried to kind of put a stop to cities taking over just if they wanted to. And so there was limits on, okay, this is going to call for a vote. But again, that's a city council thing.
And I remember that they made it significantly more difficult to annex.
That's right.
But
Correct.
if we could just get a synopsis of that, I'd appreciate it.
I could help. Yeah, I have it. I think I have it. I know we have it in the presentation that we gave 3 or 4 months ago. I'll send you the presentation, and then I think I have like some paper that has to do with that. And Mr. Chair, that's it. We were supposed to have a training on subdivisions. The attorney out of Austin weren't able to make it, and so we still had it on the agenda, but we'll postpone that again to one of those meetings where you might not have many cases. And then, I think it's important to get refresher, best practices, current practices across the board in terms of what's happening. Mr. Rodarte had suggested this outfit out of Austin. They seem to do good work. We had a proposal, we had them scheduled, and they weren't able to make it, but that's why it's on your agenda. But with that, if you have any questions, happy to answer them. We also have dinner for you all, so please join us for dinner. We have dinner for staff, dinner for you. And with that, any other comments or questions, we could close up the business meeting.
I want to tell everybody thank you for all your hard work and dedication.
Thank you.
I do appreciate our team.
Thank you, ma'am. That's right. It's a great team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 10, excuse absent commission members. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to excuse Mr. Gomez, who staff did let us know that he did call and say that he was going to be absent today.
Do I have a second? Thank you. So I have a motion made by Ms. Miriam Cruz to excuse absent commission members and seconded by Mr. Enrique Cisneros. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion carried. Moving on to item number 11, consider and take action on the adjournment of this meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you so much. I have a motion made by Mr. Andrew Arroyos and seconded by Ms. Maria Cruz to adjourn this meeting at, to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a, I'm sorry. Almost forgot. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned at 6:17 p.m.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please stay for dinner. There's some food here.